Plus, the video game side of things shows off Kingdom Hearts. We'll talk about all this, plus some Star Wars news that came out of the show on this week's Nerd News. Hey guys, this is Jason here with the news for the week, brought to you this week by Cloud9 Comics. If you're looking for a cool place to find some really interesting CGC stuff, I really urge you to check out Paul and Cloud9 Comics. You can find his store on eBay, and I'll tell you, if you're not looking for comics, he's got all kinds of stuff. He's got toys, he's got statues, he's got DVDs and Blu-rays, he's got all the stuff to slake all your nerdy desires. So check him out. If you need to get in touch with him, the number is 314-691-2864, or you can check them out at cloud9comicsandmore at gmail.com to get in touch with Paul. That's cloud9 comicsandmore at gmail.com. It's Cloud9 Comics.
Thank you for tuning in to Entertain the Geeky, your source for nerd news.
Hey guys, welcome to Nerd News. I am with you as always, and I am Jason. So some big stuff came out of the biannual Disney shareholders meeting that they called D23 last weekend. Among those things, we saw some new things from Pixar. Lucasfilm showed us off some stuff from Star Wars, and they have the various video game sides that they work with EA and some of the other companies developing games for them. But Marvel was particularly on point with everything that they brought to the table. They showed us the Black Order, which, if you're unfamiliar, they came from a comic story called Infinity. They are Thanos' generals, and what Kevin Feige is telling us is that in the movie they are also his children. So we got to see really good looks from some maquettes that represent what the CG element could look like, or most likely will look like, on the actor who's portraying them. And it's definitely quite impressive. It is a sight to behold. If you're familiar with Corvus Glaive or Proxima Midnight or Black Dwarf or any of the Black Order, you will be pleasantly surprised by how they all look. The likenesses are very on point with what the comic, what Jim Chung and Jonathan Hickman did with the characters in the comic world. They're definitely, going to be a force to be reckoned with for the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy teaming up for Avengers Infinity War. In the comic, there were actually 5 children. They have left one out. Supergiant is left out, and I'm not really sure why they chose to do this. Maybe because he just wasn't that eye-catching or just wasn't that cool of a character. But regardless, we got, Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, and a couple others, Black Dwarf and Ebony Maw, and they are very interesting characters insofar as their powers all range between different things that I guess Thanos' DNA gives to them mixed with wherever else they have come from. Corvus Glaive in the comics, for instance, is literally tied, his essence, his spirit, his life force, if you will, is tied to the spear that he wields. So in essence, as long as the spear remains intact, the essence of Corvus Glaive will survive and be able to re-inhabit a body at some point in the future. In the comics, he was actually married to Proxima Midnight. Now, keep in mind, in the comics, they were not brother and sister, so it worked a little differently there. But Proxima Midnight is just a warrior. I mean, she is one of the most capable combatants you will see on the battlefield. Black Dwarf is a character who is literally just a giant and uses his tremendous size and strength to his advantage. And Ebony Maw can get into your head and kind of influence your decision making via some kind of telepathy or mind control power. And it was told to us, we actually have not gotten to see a maquette of the character yet, but it was told to us they come to Earth seeking another child of Thanos called Thane. And Thane was a part of the comics as well, and he was not necessarily a bad guy. I mean, the more modern comics have kind of painted him that way, that he's kind of in this moral gray area where he's kind of an opportunist about the decisions that he makes. So it'll be interesting to see what the movie will do with that, whether he will be a hero or another villain who will join to Thanos' side and help him take over the galaxy. They did show off some footage from the upcoming film, and there is definitely, the people that you saw reporting on it that weekend were definitely affected by it and have all had a kind of commonality to what they have spoken about, insofar as it is a movie that will blow you away based on the footage that they saw, something that we just have not seen the Marvel Cinematic Universe do yet. And that's saying something, because they have really kind of dabbled in a lot of different movie genres, whether it be, Winter Soldier with its kind of spy, political thriller kind of vibe, or Ant-Man with its heist thing. They've definitely, and most recently with Spider-Man Homecoming with its kind of coming-of-age high school story, they've definitely tried a lot of different things in a lot of different genres. So it'll be interesting to see how Joe and Anthony Russo, the directors of the film, plan to shatter that mold and bring to us something that we have yet to see. One notable thing that always comes up from the footage is apparently Thanos uses the Infinity Gauntlet, which has all the stones on it. So we are assuming that this is from the first film and that he will assemble the stones to the gauntlet near probably some kind of conclusion to said film. But he literally rips a hole in space-time and brings through with the gauntlet a small moon that he shatters to pieces and launches at the Avengers. That is a scene that everybody who has recounted it in the interviews and the various things that came out of the convention last weekend has just been completely blown away by. And I gotta say, just hearing a description of it has really gotten me excited to see it as well. We did see, some familiar faces, some new faces. We did see Captain America in the trailer. But he has sported a beard since he's been kicked off the Avengers team, which has led some to speculate that we might get a version of Captain America more similar to Nomad, which is a moniker that he took during the Dark Reign era of Marvel Comics, where the government had been taken over basically by Norman Osborn. And he's still Captain America. He still is using the powers, but he wanted to separate himself from representing what the government had become. And I think that's very much where they left him in Civil War, is he's very disenfranchised with what this government has become. He thought better of it. And he's maybe going to change and wear a different colored costume or try something different with how he operates. But we know from Civil War that if there's danger, if something's going on, Cap's going to be there, regardless of whether or not that puts him in the government's crosshairs, if you will. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of things we're going to get out of this Infinity War movie. But every response to the footage has been resoundingly positive, and I really, really cannot wait to see what they are going to bring to us just next year. I mean, that's the crazy thing, right? This is happening next year. We should be seeing a trailer soon. And when I say soon, I don't mean tomorrow or next week, but within the next few months, as we near closer to the release of Thor Ragnarok, we should see a trailer for this. We've already seen a trailer for Black Panther, which is coming out in February of next year, which also looks amazing. So the movie after that is Avengers Infinity War. So also they have informed us that after finishing production on Avengers Infinity War, they have a little bit of time off, but then everyone's coming back to immediately start filming its follow-up, which is as of yet untitled. They're just calling it Avengers 4 at this point. So, we're going to be seeing the culmination of 20 some odd films happen in these next two Avengers movies. And I just really, really can't wait to see what Marvel's cooking up. And all the people involved seem very excited. We got to see Josh Brolin on stage holding the Infinity Gauntlet. We got almost all of the cast to come to this Disney Shareholders Expo last weekend. So they're really very excited, and really the directors are looking to bring you something that you just have not seen yet. But over on the other side of things, there was some interesting news from the video game side. If you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, we know now that Kingdom Hearts is scheduled to come out next year. We don't have a specific date yet, but this is the first time we've had a definitive from the people creating the game. This is when the game will be coming out. So I definitely am a little excited. The Square Enix Final Fantasy nerd in me loves Kingdom Hearts and what it represents. So I'm very eager to get back into it and kind of finally get to see what the conclusion of Sora's story is. But far be it for Disney to not bring some new information to the table at a shareholders meeting, because they showed off a new world for Kingdom Hearts. And I know there's been a lot of speculation about whether or not we'd get some kind of Star Wars or Marvel-themed world within this game, because Disney owns both of those properties now. But just as excitingly, they didn't show off Star Wars or Marvel, but just as excitedly they showed off Toy Story, which is very, very interesting territory that they have just not gone to yet with the game story. And I really don't know why. I mean, those movies had already become popular by the time Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2 were gracing our shelves. So it just doesn't really make much sense why we haven't touched on that world yet. And if you're familiar with the Kingdom Hearts games, then you know that when Sora and Donald and Goofy enter a new world, they very much take on the properties or the look of the characters within that world. So when they go to, Halloween Town for Nightmare Before Christmas, they're all dressed in Halloween costumes. When they go to, the Tron world, they're all digital costumes. So they definitely tend to take on the properties of the places that they go to. And far be it for Toy Story to be left behind. I mean, when you set foot on the world of Toy Story, you are a toy. Which is a very interesting look. He's got, Sora and Donald and Goofy. They have little jointed elbows and jointed knees. They are toys going into the world, and you'll be interacting directly with Woody and Buzz and Slinky Dog and all of your favorite characters from the Toy Story films. I personally love those films. I'm excited to see Sora interact with those characters. But it definitely looks like in that world, you are the toys. That is the perspective that they are going with. You're not going there and meeting toys who are alive. You are one of those toys that are alive. You see them fighting in the footage that they showed off out in the driveway of Andy's house against Heartless that also very much look like toys. They showed off some new kind of fusion things for the Keyblade, where the Keyblade as a weapon can now do things that it has yet to do. Transforming and using different attacks, which will be interesting to see how that's incorporated with the battle system that we've all kind of come to know over the years, even in the various offshoot games, which change the formula a little bit sometimes. But overall, the battle system has remained a pretty constant part of what Kingdom Hearts is. I will say the visuals, though, they are impressive. I mean, obviously this is a big fancy video they put together to show off to their shareholders, but if it's any indicator of what the final product will be, graphically speaking, it's amazing. I mean, it's fluent, it's beautiful. It is the best looking Kingdom Hearts game by far that we have seen, which, is to say something. They're pumping it out on the PlayStation 4 hardware, which, probably won't be the peak of what hardware is for long. I mean, obviously there are other things in development, but right now this is the peak of the hardware we use for gaming, and it's really impressive what some really good developers have been able to, how they've been able to use the hardware to kind of push the boundaries of what we know as graphical limitations in video games. And I think Kingdom Hearts is going to be a perfect example of that. Excuse me. So there's definitely a lot to be excited about if you're a Kingdom Hearts fan. If you're a Marvel fan, the Insomniac Games working with Disney is developing a Spider-Man game that is going to be exclusive to PlayStation. And they showed off some kind of behind-the-scenes footage of their developers kind of talking about what they're trying to bring to the table. And if you saw the gameplay video, I mean, the gameplay video very much kind of gets across a superhero game that is more akin to kind of the Arkham Batman mold. And I don't say that because it will be exactly the same, but I say that because the way games are being designed, for superhero characters since the arrival of the Batman Arkham games has really changed, and developers are kind of looking at these games a different way. And that's great for us. I mean, what it means is we will finally get to see, taken seriously some of the character properties that we've wanted to jump into over the years. And that's not to say Spider-Man is the first time that we'll be getting a new and interesting Spider-Man game. Some of the Spider-Man games have been spectacular over the years. In fact, most of them have at least offered something interesting to players. But this one definitely looks like it's going to take it in kind of more of an open world, new direction, similar to Batman Arkham City, where you have all of Gotham as your kind of playground to go around and fight random crimes and do story missions and the various things like that. And I think that's a good model to follow for a company that's trying to develop something with Spider-Man, who is really on everybody's mind right now with the success of the movie. I mean, even the cartoon show is doing well. So they are kind of capitalizing on something that I think we've been waiting enough for some good things to come out of it, especially in the movie department. Far be it for Lucasfilm to be left out of this equation as well. Going over to them, they had some behind-the-scenes footage to show off for Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which is going to be here close sooner than you think. I mean, we're coming up on August, and we only have to wait till December to see what Lucasfilm has cooked up for its next saga chapter. I say saga chapter because if you saw Rogue One, that's a Star Wars movie, but it's not a part of the Star Wars saga, the numbered films. So we're getting closer to that, and they instead of showing off a new trailer, they kind of showed off the actors working together and did a kind of a little retrospective of what the shoot was. And you can watch that video, on the internet. I urge you to go check it out. It's worthwhile if you're a Star Wars fan to see the interactions between Rey and Kylo Ren and Poe, behind the scenes. And there's some excellent behind the scenes footage of Carrie Fisher, who we lost, earlier this year. And it was, tragic and sad. And at least Princess Leia got to grace us, on screen one more time. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of write her out of the story as well. But it's a fantastic video, and it's really, just a little taste of what we'll probably see eventually being a trailer in sometime in the coming weeks or even months. I would say sooner rather than later, just because it's been a while since they showed off that initial teaser, and post-production is well underway at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what they show off in the coming weeks with this weekend, Comic-Con and San Diego International Comic-Con, where all these companies who just had their big presentations last week now have to go out to another location and present us something different. We talked a little bit about that last week, and we'll definitely touch on that a little more next week. So there's interesting things going on with the start of Comic-Con. We've just kind of had a little bit of a preview day with today, with Thursday. Nothing really big has popped out of it, other than some schedules for events going on throughout the weekend. So we have some very big panels coming from DC, which has got, Justice League coming out later this year, in September, November. I'm not really a little fuzzy on that, but it is coming before the end of the year. November, and Thor also coming out in November, so we'll see we'll see which movie takes more of the money of the nerds that are going to be sitting like us, that are going to be sitting in that theater watching those movies. I'd wager a guess to say it's probably Thor, but we'll see, I guess, after this weekend's events at Comic-Con, whether or not Warner Brothers is going to bring something that we've yet to see to the table about Justice League. Joss Whedon has been brought in to replace Zack Snyder, who had a tragic event happen to him and his family. Their daughter took her own life, and it's just terrible. And he thought he could go back to work, but he wasn't ready to. So they brought in Joss Whedon. So Joss Whedon, will be on hand to talk about whatever he's been able to add or change or have influence over, as he's been brought on to replace Zack Snyder for director of Justice League. And I imagine he'll probably talk about the Batgirl film that he's got coming. They tapped him to do that a while ago before they asked him to take over the reins of Justice League. And he was happy to take over the reins of Justice League, but he still very much wants to do that Batgirl film. And I'd imagine with him on the panel, we might get some questions about that and maybe get a little information about it. But DC has still really needs to show us, what they have coming down the pipeline. I mean, Marvel is always 10 steps ahead of the game when it comes to preparing you for the next, year of their films. And I feel like we've seen very little about what the future of DC is. We know they're working on the Aquaman film, but we've yet to see any concrete, footage or anything like that. The Flash has had some problems with the director, and then the script had to be rewritten. So there's definitely skepticism about can they kind of hold on to all of this? Can they kind of keep all of these pieces together and build something worthwhile and meaningful in the same way that Marvel has? And not to say that they have to compete with Marvel. Whether we like what DC has done with these films, notwithstanding, they have made money and they have been considered successes for Warner Brothers as a company. So they're going to continue doing what they have to do. I urge them I would say they probably compare themselves to what Marvel is doing more often than even we as fans do, but I would urge them not to. Marvel has just found a way to do films in a way that appeal to a larger audience. They know that guys like me and hopefully the rest of you out there listening are going to be sitting in the seat watching those movies because you're excited to see Spider-Man and Batman and Thor and Superman and Wonder Woman grace the screen with their presence, things that we've been loving since we were children. I know I have. I mean, I've been reading comics since the age of 10. I've literally been preparing for the love of this movie thing my whole life. And I really hope that we get to see DC kind of come into their own and step out of Marvel's shadow and really just stop trying to compete and or keep up with what they're doing. Because I think the actors that they've got in place can really do something, magical with the characters. I do think that Ben Affleck has the potential to be better as Batman. We saw Wonder Woman. It was amazing. So hopefully with Comic-Con, they kind of will, solidify some of the future plans and get us ready to start enjoying their films again. Because for me, Superman and Batman and Suicide Squad have just not, they were disappointing. Wonder Woman was the first time I came out of one of those films enjoying what I had just sat and witnessed. So definitely next week we'll have a whole show about what happened at Comic-Con. I'm literally just thinking that's all we're going to talk about next week. We'll go right into it. We won't even worry about anything else, because that'll be where my attention will be over the week, and hopefully where your attention will be as well. So keep up with Entertain the Geeky. Check out the website entertainthegeeky.com for all the social media stuff. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks for sitting in and listening to me kind of wax poetic about all the nerdy things that we love. So stay geeky out there.